Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Book of Grudges has grown long, and Thorgrim is looking to right one of the wrongs as he faces off against the Greenskins being led by Wurzag. So I am leading the Dawi forces here, and Irongeneral is commanding the Greenskins. So this is part of the Showdown of the Lords semi-final, and this was being hosted by Zadagan. There will be a link to his channel down in the description for you guys to check out that. And for the Dawi army that we have here today, we have a front line of dwarf warriors. We have 4 units of those, one of which is the warriors of Dragonfire Pass. So they have fire damage, but that's not going to be a whole lot of help against the Greenskins. They do have a nice little buff to their other melee stats as well. But potentially if you see any of the regenerating units such as Grom or perhaps any of the trolls, they do very well because they do that extra damage against regenerating characters. And behind those warriors, we do have some miners with blasting charges, 3 of which, and they'll do very well against the rush of any of the Greenskin chaff units. Pretty much all of their low armored stuff, and even do a decent amount of work to even some of the armored targets. And then for the ranged firepower, we have a lineup of 3 Iron Drakes. Do well against a lot of the low armored units, savage orcs, any of the goblins. They will just roast through any of those, and even sustain fire on some black orcs will do some good work on top of that. For the line behind those iron drakes, we have a couple of thunderers as well, looking to put a hurt on any of the highly armored stuff. So those black orcs, any chariots that you might find, or any large targets, which you don't see a whole lot against the dwarves, but against the chariots and the black orcs, you'll see, and they will do good work against those. And in the back line protecting everything, we have a couple of slayers, one of which being the Dragonback Slayers ROR unit, and they'll be good against any of the mobility that the Greenskins can often bring. So any like Squig Hoppers or any of the range unit or the mobile unit trying to get into the range units of the Dawi. We of course have Thorgrim leading the forces, and we have 2 gyrocopters up in the skies as well, the steam variant, so they'll do well against any of the like any goblins or any of the fanatics. They'll do very well against those, not so much against any of the like black orcs, for instance. The brimstone gun would do more work against those targets, but they are here to help clear out the chaff. But for the lineup of the Greenskins, we do have a line of 4 Savage Orc Biggins with 3 Black Orcs mixed in. So that is a fairly expensive front line for the Greenskins. I mean, the Black Orcs have a lot of stopping power, and they'll do great work against Dwarf Warriors. Pretty much anything that we have here. It'll just be how long can they last. Will they be able to stick out to the Thunderers and the Iron Drakes long enough? And then we, of course, have the Savage Orc Biggins, who, if they get onto the right targets, they'll make quick work of them. So if they get onto those Iron Drakes, a unit of Savage Orcs will absolutely burn through those very, very quickly. They do have I think they have no armor, actually, but they have very good melee stats. Now for the ranged support, we do have Orc Arrow Boys, a couple of Goblin Archers, and another unit of Orc Arrow Boys. One of the ones is the Rusty Arrows, which is always a good pick against the Dawi, and I think you probably will see it in pretty much every single match for the Greenskins against the Dawi, because they do have that armor sundering, and that is very, very good against the highly armored Greenskin faction. Alright, Dwarven faction, I'm sorry. But yeah, and then we have Wurzag leading the forces, coming in with a few little spells of his own. He is going to be bringing Gaze of Mork, providing a nice moderate damage against a single large combatant. So potentially going up against any of the artillery pieces. We do have Here We Go, which gives a very nice buff to melee attack to himself and affects allies in range. So again, if he's mixed in with like Black Orcs or the Savage Orcs, that will just absolutely skyrocket their melee attack into the stratosphere. We have the Foot of Gork, which is a very expensive but very, very good spell that can do a ton of damage if it's able to get onto a plopped up target. And then we also have Effigy of the Git, causing damage to combatants, and just a pretty standard area of effect damaging ability. And we do have a little bit of mobility in the form of the T-Frobbers, who are the ROR Goblin Wolf Chariot unit, who have a nice little bonus versus infantry and a very respectable missile damage as well. But that will be it for the armies, and let's get this show on the road. A little lack of mobility on the Greenskins. Generally, that is what the Dwarven army struggles with. We do have also some Night Goblins as well. Forgot about those units initially. But we do have the Gyrocopters are kind of getting in, taking a few shots into the Savage Orcs. And they'll be kind of slightly pushed off by these Goblin Archers and the Orc Arrow Boys. Not a huge threat to those Gyrocopters. It's the big threat is going to be the Rusty Arrows who are now starting to get in range of this Gyrocopter, and with that armor sundering, that Gyrocopter is not going to be one sticking around and getting shot by multiple targets. It is being shot by the Tief Robbers, who has a lower unit count, but it does a lot of damage for each missile, and so they'll do decent time over damage against those Gyrocopters. But now it looks like the front lines are starting to get close to engaging. The Thunderers pushing forward, looking to get some shots into these Black Orcs, who is their target. That is who they need to deal with. The Thunderers want to be dealing with the Black Orcs and the Tief Robbers if they can. So, Effigy of the Git was cast, causing these Thunderers to not be able to move, and then the Foot of Gork absolutely stomps down on them. You can see that imprint in the ground, just taking off like 3/4 of their health. Just a massive attack damage. We have some of the units are starting to get engaged. We have some Black Orcs here. A nice volley from the Miners with blasting charges, doing some respectable damage to the Savage Orc Biggins. But in they come to melee, and now the Iron Drakes and the Thunderers are going to be tasked with dealing with everything else. Now it looks like we have the Tief Robbers are starting to get a little bit into the cookie jar, getting back into these Iron Drakes, but these Dragonblack Slayers are going to respond, and the Tief Breakers or Tief Robbers will push off through their own units to kind of get away from those Slayers. Pretty much as long as they stay away from the Slayers, they should be able to do fairly well, and a very nice volley from these Miners. Just getting right into the Rusty Arrows and the Savage Orc Biggins. So the Rusty Arrows have gotten a little too much ahead of themselves. Probably need to be pulled back, because these Iron Drakes are going to be getting a 2-for-1 bargain deal, firing into the Rusty Arrows and the Savage Orc Biggins, and they do both rout right now. And we'll see if there's anything left to chase them off. But otherwise, we have a little break in the line as some Savage Orcs and Black Orcs are starting to get in. But these Thunderers are going to be turning and firing point-blank range. If they're able to get a volley off, though, it looks like they're getting a little bit of friendly fire in. But they do get a volley right into the side of the Savage Orc Biggins, and they are going to be routing just as they get into engagement with those Iron Drakes. Enough firepower was able to come down range to push them off, and another Foot of Gork firing down into the top of the Dragonback Slayers. Not really the biggest threat to the Greenskin army here. Dragonbacks are a very good anti-large, but there isn't a whole lot of that on the field right now. It's pretty much just the Tief Robbers. So both of the Slayer units really only going to be here for their Unbreakable at this point, as these units of Slayers are holding off some Black Orcs and Savage Orc Biggins. They will not last very long, but they will allow for the Iron Drakes and Thunderers to clean up what else they can. And now the Black Orcs are starting to peel off as they are forced past through this unit of only 11 Slayers, trying to hold them back, but here they come right into the back of these Iron Drakes. Every time I take a look around, we do have some more units are starting to break as Wurzag is getting into these Iron Drakes, looking to shut them down to allow these Black Orcs to come in. But here is a nice little pocket of Thunderers firing right into their flank. And we have some Dwarf Warriors who should be able to hold them up for at least long enough for these Thunderers to do the work that they need. And the Thunderers, or Iron Drakes, being pulled back through these Miners to allow at least a little bit more time. But the Dwarves are a little bit on the back foot right now. They are getting pushed back on pretty much all of the fronts, and the range units are trying to fall back to allow themselves to fire as long as they can, as the returning units of Miners and some Dwarf Warriors are just pretty much playing the delay game at this point. As we have Thorgrim kind of way up in the front right now, without really any support, but of course there's also nothing that can really damage him, or at least close by. I mean, he's going to just do a ton of work in Savage Orcs. He has 125 armor, so there's not a whole lot that's going to be able to deal with him. So the Greenskins pretty much need to combine Wurzag with some Black Orcs to really put a punishment onto him. But otherwise, yeah, these got Gyrocopters firing in to these Savage Orc Biggins, doing some good work, being able to rout them off. These Tief Robbers, though, they are getting into the cookie jar once again, shutting down these Thunderers as the Rusty Arrows are now firing into the Iron Drakes with their armor sundering, so they'll be able to do a decent amount of work to them, though the Iron Drakes themselves have a ton of armor on their base models, as the Iron Drakes have pulled off just far enough, and it looks like they'll be getting some shots point blank into Wurzag. I think most of the shots there potentially going just a little high, but right now, if we take a look at the Dwarven left flank, they've actually done fairly well, able to push back most of the Greenskins units, and are now getting into the Orc Arrow Boys. But we do have a unit of Black Orcs and Savage Orc Brigands coming in to assist. There isn't any really ranged support to really deal with them, and another foot of Gork just drops on top of this Thunderer unit, deleting them and routing them right off the field. 17 models, just a sliver of HP left. Probably won't be seeing that group anytime soon. Thorgrim able to actually shatter these Rusty Arrows. One of kind of the big threats for the Dawi is kind of off the field, so there will be no more armor sundering coming from those goblins. But here are some Dwarf Warriors. They are wavering, but they have at least been able to push off these Savage Orcs as well as the Black Orcs, but they do rout just as they're trying to push these units off, as the Gyrocopter is flying overhead trying to do what it can. But it looks like we have these Orc Arrow Boys will be turning and firing fairly quickly, and they have a lot of units left and a decent amount of ammo, and one of the Gyrocopters does go down. Another unit of Dwarf Warriors able to shut down these Goblin Archers, at least for the time being. But otherwise, it is pretty much just going to be Thorgrim and just a haggard group of infantry units against Wurzag and a handful of Black Orcs. They do have 34 models. It is going to actually be tough to see if they can actually deal with Thorgrim. And Black Orcs is probably the only thing that can do damage to him at this point. These archers, he's just going to weather that storm very, very well. Even the Teeth Robbers aren't going to be doing a whole lot, but here are a unit of Thunderers back from the dead, almost to the edge of the map, but not quite, as soon if they turn and fire, those Black Orcs, I don't know if they'd even be able to reach them. They still have they have 18 models left, and a good amount of ammo as well on top of that. Teeth Robbers charging into these Iron Drakes, looking to isolate Thorgrim as much as they can, and that's pretty much going to have to be the name of the game for the Greenskins, because here are the Black Orcs and Wurzag are going to be engaging now, and Thorgrim is attacking Wurzag directly. I think Wurzag actually would be best to pull out here. He is not the best melee combatant, especially when compared to Thorgrim's damage output, because he is doing a 61-62 and 500 weapon strength, so he is a very, very tanky lord, and he also has 125 armor. And Wurzag does not have armor piercing, or at least very good armor piercing damages, and he is wavering right now, as the Black Orcs, they really should be supporting him. They are trying to get as much of the support away, but Wurzag does shatter, and with that, the rest of the Greenskin army will drop to army losses as well. And that will be our game, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at the after battle report. So if we take a quick little look at how things went, yeah, the frontline engagement really went the Greenskins' way. The Black Orcs and Savage Orc Brigands really just doing a ton of damage to the Dwarf Warriors. So we had one unit actually get 109 kills. So that's actually very respectful against especially the amount of infantry that the Greenskins were bringing. The Gyrocopter is able to just kind of pluck away as best they could. But the real winners of this battle here were the Iron Drakes and Thunderers. They kept falling back farther and farther, but they were able to get as much shots in as best they can, able to do a ton of damage to the Black Orcs as they tried to push forward. Even though this unit did get 136 kills, those Thunderers and Iron Drakes were able to keep them at bay as best they can. Thorgrim as well, especially at the end there. Yeah, the Greenskins just didn't have anything to deal with him. 125 armor, as I said, 61-62 for melee attack and melee defense. Wurzag was not going to be able to punch through that, especially with even just one unit of Black Orcs wasn't going to be enough. I think that the Greenskins did need to bring a little bit more mobility. You'll often see a lot of chariot play coming in. I mean, even Snotlings do fairly well in this matchup. Snotlings, Squigs, those are two very good units that have armor-piercing damage and do well against the infantry units of the Dawi, and they are able to shut down those ranged units fairly well. But otherwise, it was a very good match, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. And as always, have a good one.